Welcome everybody to this next episode of TNG. We're here with my brother Madhu, a former Bhakti monk with the Krishna consciousness movement, a movement very dear to my heart, Bhakti yoga practice. Madhu, for anyone who doesn't know you already, just share a little bit about yourself and what your mission is on this planet Earth at this moment in time.
Yeah, as of now, great to see you, Owen. Thanks for having me on here. And grateful for all of you who are listening. I'm certain that if you're willing to follow, I'm probably going to say some things that are making you feel very comfortable and some other things that make you very uncomfortable. So stay tuned. Right now, my main thing is helping and supporting others who know how to improve the quality of life of other individuals. So that's something that I dedicated to many years, is different technologies and sciences and arts that improve others' quality of life, usually in the form of health. And after doing that for years, now my primary focus is helping those usually like health professionals, wellness professionals, and coaches, healers, etc. I support them in both their own healing as well as their business and making sure that they can grow and scale the amount of people they can help. That's my current ambition for the last couple of years.
Excellent. So I'm sure, like myself, many of the viewers today would love to know, what was it like being a monk, a devotee in the temple of Krishna, and what kind of shifts did it make in your energy and in your consciousness?
Sure. So I did what every 18-year-old does on his birthday, every 18-year-old man does, and that is became a monk. My brother shaved my head. There's a whole story behind that. Maybe we get into it later. I don't know. But I was there for about half a decade. And the primary thing, there's a lot of things that you learn there, but there's two primary wins that once you get these two areas covered, that's usually the time when one graduates. Because there's two types of monks. One monk is a student monk that eventually graduates and becomes a quote unquote normal person, integrates those practices back into the real world. And then there's a lifelong celibate monk, which is usually, at least in the West, people think that everyone thinks that's what a monk is. You become a monk and you're just for the rest of your life. But usually it's 1%, if that, of monks go for gold. They stay for the rest of their life. For those few years that I was a monk, there's many things we learned, but the two primary things that we're going for is, number one, sense control. And you have the five senses, you have the seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, and touching, as well as the sixth sense, which is the mind. And so learning how to control these senses are you can say the primary thing that one goes for in the monastery. The other thing is sensitivity, which is a very interesting topic. When it comes to sensitivity, most men by nature don't enjoy being sensitive. Now, obviously, you have some special souls, maybe like yourself included, that have a nature of sensitivity to other living entities, but it's not something that comes automatically. We usually want to do what we want, when we want, how we want. And so sensitivity means not only being able to communicate in a way that is effective, and by effective communication, I mean saying words in a way that the listener will be able to digest them, but it also means being able to engage with others with, sensitivity in a way that allows the people around you to not only understand you authentically, but also not to unnecessarily cause issues and cause burdens and cause challenges in other people's lives, as well as not unnecessarily become a walking mat. That's really what I'm going for here. It says, you don't just want to take everyone's, can I cuss? No, I won't do it. I got shiz. Not just taking other people's shiz, but also not giving other people shiz. In other words. So those are like the two. Once one has exhibited for a long period of time those types of symptoms, that's usually around the time when the student monk will graduate and proceed on to householder life, normal people life. You get to grow some hair, and you get a job and family, and whatever it might look like. So those are two primary things, but in terms of how it's shifted my consciousness is learning what actually matters in this world, what actually holds value. Because we're taught from, you look at any screen for long enough, someone on the screen is going to tell you what to value, and it's going to be in the form of, look at this cool shiny car, look at this watch, you got to get this haircut, you got to get this type of clothing, you got to live in this type of house, you got to buy this type of food, we're just constantly being bombarded with information of what we should value. But as a monk, we're forced, and when I say we're actually, I should be very clear, no one's forced to do anything. Everything was voluntary, but by sitting in long bouts of meditation and reading ancient yoga literatures, your mind is forced to accept the reality that what values is the soul, relationships from soul to soul. That means the value relationships ultimately, which culminates in our divine relationship or our relationship with divinity. And so that's really the primary shift of consciousness, because once you value relationships above everything else, then you value service above everything else. Because if you value a relationship, what do? If you love someone, you serve them. And therefore, you value service the most. And a life of service is very happy. It's actually very happy. No one actually likes to just be served all day. They think they do. And then they do it a little bit, but it's just very unsatisfying. Really, if you love someone and you serve them, there's no feeling better than that. So anyway, there's much more I can say about that, but that's a little bite-sized version.
Absolutely. So it sounds like, from what I've heard, that through this deep, diligent meditation practice, through the study of ancient Vedic and yoga scriptures, you're cultivating a sensitivity to your connection with everyone and everything in your life. And this is not a simple concept, because when we're sensitive, we're getting a superpower, right? We're getting these cities, these superpowers, this sensitivity, super senses, but we're also feeling the pain of the world. So this is a powerful strength. I remember you saying something about a lot of us men are afraid of being sensitive or shy away from being sensitive. But really, this is the definition of superpower. Having a super sense is being able to allow yourself to feel the pain of the world and still be able to be of service. Like you said, that's strength. If you numb yourself, that's not strength, that's hiding. Ironically, one of the funniest things I learned from being a massage therapist is grown adult men have the lowest pain tolerance in terms of deep tissue, and women, especially women who've already become mothers, have the highest pain tolerance. So this sensitivity makes us stronger, makes us able to receive the pain and injustices of the world, but it also makes us more sensitive to the love. And that brings me to my next question for you is, I know love and devotion is part of what Krishna, the main deity of your bhakti practice, is all about. How did becoming a monk teach you about love and what love means, and how to be of service in love, and active and passive love?
Yeah, what a nice question. I think it's important to preface to the idea of sometimes Krishna, which is a Sanskrit name means all attractive, and the idea is the bhakti tradition, and bhakti literally means love and devotion. For everyone listening, is an ancient practice that isn't any particular. There's no physical limitations or confines of who can practice it. So no matter what gender someone is, financial status, religion, ethnicity, etc., anyone can practice bhakti, and that means adding in, bhakti yoga literally would say connecting to divinity through love and devotion. And so, there's this nice, beautiful name. Krishna means the all attractive, and it's a nice name for divinity. But really, there's only one sun in the sky, and no matter where you go in the world, everyone's going to call the sun by a different name. Here we call it sun. Go down south a little, they say Sol. Go across over there, they say Surya. So many names for the sun, but we're ultimately all talking about the same one sun. And so how has this specific practice brought me more depth and connection to the sun, per se, the divine source, the big OG, as we like to say, big OG. And that's primarily through the method of what's called devotional service, which means that true happiness comes from serving those that you love the most. And even in this world, like you mentioned that, what women in general can tend to be a little more sensitive, which is, as you mentioned, such a superpower, like so fantastic. And even it can cause challenges, like too sensitive, like the heart's too soft. I'll always choose a soft. I would much rather a soft heart than a hard heart, whatever it might be. But that type of receptivity can even cause issues. And you mentioned even that, when they become mothers, that receptivity opens up even further. And they say that, there's data now. We actually have peer-reviewed tests done on the greatest happiness that people experience in this world. And they've even done tests to find out, who are the happiest people in the world. And these tests all show that the happiest are moms when they're serving their children. That's the happiest person. But it doesn't make any material sense, because all moms do is just give their undivided attention, physical support, exhaustive resources. They just serve the child. And what does a child do for mom? Hardly a thing. What does the baby do for mom? Hardly a thing. The mom's wiping the butt, giving the food, taking care, showering, make sure they're protected. It's a completely service-based situation. Yet that's the happiest position. It's against the material mind and senses. But ultimately, when we look past the material into the spiritual, we can understand that true happiness really comes from devotional service, loving service. What to speak of to one that we love in this world, that we're confined by a material mind and body? What to speak of loving service to divinity, to whom is our best friend, who's situated in our hearts at all times, overseeing everything and making sure that we don't stray too far, and giving us sign after sign to say, hey, just so you know, all I want is a relationship with you. And as soon as you're ready, I'm here. I'm not going to ever impose myself on your free will, but I'm always going to make sure you got signs letting you know that whenever you're ready, I'm here. And I'm just like with big open arms, ready to embrace and connect.
What you said about that last part right there, never imposing your will, is such a powerful definition of what real love is. I mean, I'm guilty, and many people on the planet are guilty of trying to control others in love, trying to influence so much that we're the dominant force, and vice versa. Some people want to be submissive and they want to be ruled over and dominated, but in reality, this isn't that sensation of loving service. It's not that. It's more lust, and that's something that you've basically conquered with that years of.
I don't know about conquered, but definitely have tools to navigate. But thank you.
More so than most, I guess would be a better way to put it. More so than most, in control of that inner ability to love without controlling others. Because in my definition, lust, which we consider negative, what's the difference between lust and love? Lust wants to control. Lust wants to own. Lust wants that ego pit of, hey, I have power over this. I have influence over this. Or you feel lack of power, really, is what happens when you see somebody who's so controlling in their relationships. They're never really significantly happy. They're never really significantly fulfilled in their life, because they really are coming from a space of lack of power. But when you step into that devotion, that Krishna consciousness, that love center, then you feel that power. But it's like a controlless power. It's like a free power, like a waterfall or a wave. It's not trying to hold or control or influence at all. It's just you are that powerful force of the universe in that sense. So what were some of the challenges that you faced as a monk in overcoming those feelings of lust or desire, or trying to control the external world rather than trying to control the internal world?
Well, I mean, you just said it so well there, is that the first step always is controlling that inner world per se. Usually when it comes to controlling the senses, especially if we're talking about lust, especially in a sexual way, because as a monk, obviously you're completely celibate. That means, I mean, I could give some crude jokes. Sometimes people are like, oh, you're celibate, you only do this, that. No, it's like nothing. You control that desire. Usually we go to crazy extremes of trying to grab the mind and control the mind. And I always compare that. It's like, if you have like a deranged monkey and you try to grab and contain the monkey, does that monkey like, oh yeah, thanks, Bert? No, that monkey freaks out, doubles down. So similarly, if we just grab the mind and just like try to wrestle with it, we'll rarely be successful. It's just not necessarily a sustainable option. Rather, as we find tools, both, you can say within the body in terms of the mind, but even physical tools and habits in our life that do a few things. Number one is situate those urges. So, like, example you gave of lust, like what do we do with lust specifically, is that is a type of creative energy that usually gets channeled through sexual energy, and it bottles up, and we got to release it through sexual energy. If we could figure out how to control and manipulate that creative energy in a healthy way, where it doesn't have to just get wasted and expelled. And one might say, what do you mean by wasted, Madhu? It's a lot of energy in terms of like releasing sexual fluids from the body. It takes about 60 drops of blood to make 1 drop of semen or ovum. And it takes about how many drops of blood, whatever, there's how many drops of that vital fluid in one release of that fluid. I mean, it takes how much energy of the body to create how much blood. And it's so much effort of the body to create that type of fluid that when we're just releasing it, it can be very detrimental to health over time. That's maybe another conversation topic, but in case you're wondering what I meant by that, that's what I'm referring to. And so how do we control that energy so we're not just depleting ourselves and expending it? Is we find out other avenues, other happy, healthy ways to express that creative source, that creative energy in such a way that we still feel relief or released by it, as opposed to having to do the physical release, which doesn't actually relieve it. It's like if you have a mosquito bite, does itching it actually relieve it? It does not. If anything, it just agitates it. And every time you do it, you're more inclined to do it again and then again and again. And because of its addictive nature, it becomes all encompassing. And it's not like, oh, I'll just release the valve now. No, it's like, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. And you're always looking for that next hit of dopamine. So rather, we want to find other healthy ways to channel it. Now, there's so many examples. So you can do it through physical work in terms of exercise or yoga or whatever the case. There's ways to physically get that energy out. There's ways by engaging the senses, either by turning them off or by stimulating them. Different senses, desensitizing the eyes or the nose, the mouth, the ears, the touch, shutting those senses down or engaging them in another way. Doing it from a sense of controlling the mind by various tools and practices where you're focusing on different areas and you're releasing trauma from them. I mean, there's many different avenues one can take to controlling the mind and the senses, but the primary mechanism that we're trying to modulate there, or the primary thing that we really want to learn to control, is our reactions to stimuli. Or I would actually rather say our response to stimuli. In terms of, instead of a reaction, is a response. So we have a stimuli that affects our minds, our consciousnesses, and our conditionings in different ways. And according to the way we're developed, every brain is going to respond to different stimuli different. X happens, I react. I've trained my brain to react in such a way. To the extent that we can create space between the time that a stimuli happens and the time that I react, and ideally even don't stop reacting, I have time to respond consciously to that stimuli. To that extent, we can control our senses. And so the practice really is, how do I create some space between, okay, I see X. I see X happen, or I hear X, and my gut reaction is to screw you, or fill in the blank, is to do whatever it is, or to freak out, or to yell, or to smile, or to frown. To the extent that I can acknowledge how I want to respond to life or react to life, and then consciously choose how I want to respond, that is the lever we're looking to identify for sense control. So that makes sense. I mean, I know I got a little lofty there. I hope for yourself and for the listeners that makes sense, but that's a little overview on the mechanism we're looking to modulate for sense control.
That makes a lot of sense. And going beyond just everyday battles with your internal world, what you said about responding rather than reacting. So many people are living in that state of reaction, reenaction. So somebody's angry with them, now they're angry. Somebody's upset with them, now they're upset. Somebody's happy with them, now they're happy. It's like they're living at the whim of other people's actions, and they're reacting, they're reenacting, rather than going inward and taking that meditative approach, that monk mindset of, this is the external force. This is the external force coming in. How am I going to internally react? Somebody could be angry and I could choose peace. I could choose to react with anger if that's the right situation to react with anger. But external circumstances don't have to enable a reaction. You don't have to comply to the forces externally. You can decide for yourself internally what you're going to do to act rather than react. And in this sense, we're taking more power into our own hands. I heard this beautiful Zen quote the other day about, it's not the water outside the boat that sinks a ship during the storm. It's the water that gets inside the boat. So it's not the external world that's making us suffer. It's when we allow that external world to be influencing our behavior in a way in which it steals our peace. That's when we start to really feel the pain and suffering of the world harder. But when you enter, like you said, loving devotional service, you can be in that storm and you can be assisting others. You can be a lighthouse for others to guide people away from the storm, rather than being in the storm without a ship or letting too much water in, and you're just trying to save yourself emotionally at that point. So that's like where emotional regulation comes in, where meditation and ancient scriptures come in, is being able to be so thriving within your own being that you can be a sanctuary for others. You can be a ship sailing by someone drowning and help them aboard, rather than just drowning in your own emotions and sinking in your own storm. You got to handle that first, and enable being able to help others. So what are some ways in which you feel like the average person can start to step into more devotional, loving service in their life?
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I love what you said too with this analogy of the ocean. And there's a phrase I often use, which is, a drowning lifeguard can't save any, but a strong lifeguard can save many. And the idea of, like, you know, if we don't even know how to swim, it's like, it's a problem, right? But strengthening ourselves to the point where we can then, as you so well said, uplift others, not save others, but support, help, serve others. Yeah, love it. Well, what I developed a system which is called the monk mindset method, which is functionally how to start to train the brain, but even as a quote unquote normal person, someone that doesn't want to shave their head and move to the monastery, which I don't encourage most people to do. What are some of those practices that one can start to do immediately? The first and foremost practice, which is mentioned in the ancient yoga literature, is written down over 5,000 years ago. There's many practices that are given in terms of controlling the mind and in terms of like actually opening and awakening the heart. And because it's taught there that there is that supreme consciousness or that Krishna consciousness that's natural to us. It's just dormant, just needs to be reawoken. It just needs to be reawoken through connection with divinity. And the primary practice that's pushed there, it's like the ancient sages of India, they don't even just suggest it. They like, is it, you like for this particular age, this practice must be done because it's the most effective and efficient way. And that is associating with transcendental sound. What that means is chanting mantras which aren't of this world, that are of divine syllable, which means the simplest way to put this is divinity is not bound by time and space as you or I might be. Maybe you're not, you're a yogi, you might not be bound by time and space, but I certainly am. And fortunately, the nature of the absolute is absolute. The nature of the unlimited is unlimited, etc. So when we're calling out to divinity, if we're chanting these names of divinity, who's not bound by time and space, we're actually welcoming a type of divine union. We're welcoming divinity into our mind, into our hearts, into our lives. As if we would call, ring, ring, ring. Hey, friend, can you hear me? Yes, you can always hear. Divinity can always hear. And so there's this ancient practice called mantra meditation, which is chanting these sacred mantras, which you and I have done together, of course. And for those of you listening who aren't familiar, there's many mantras available, but there's a few that have been mentioned that are the most potent. They're like specifically one, which is called like the panacea mantra, that specifically reawakens that dormant supreme consciousness from within and simultaneously trains and engages the mind. It trains the mind, which is a muscle, to cooperate and to become your best friend. So you are no longer just following helplessly whatever the mind says and does, but rather you are now becoming the boss of the mind. Because you're not the mind, you're not the body, you're something divine. You're not the body, you're not the mind, you're something divine. So this mantra meditation practice is so helpful, not only doing it personally when we're just one-on-one and we're by ourselves, but also doing it collectively in groups. We chant these mantras. And maybe I'll just give one example of a mantra and I'll say it out loud. Listeners, if you'd like to respond, Janet, you're welcome to as well. But one example of a mantra that not only reawakens this, again, supreme bliss within, but it also trains and engages the mind is the Maha mantra. The Maha in Sanskrit means great. A lot of mantras there, but this one's called, they call this the great mantra because it's the panacea. What can be achieved from all of the mantras is available in just this one. And so I'll just chant it briefly one time through, and you guys are welcome to respond, listen to it, whatever the case may be. And it sounds something like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it's a 16 syllable or 32 syllable, 16 word mantra that one can sit and repeat, just like I did there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And like that, one can just chant over and over, and they'll notice the mind wants to wander, but you keep bringing the mind back down to the sound. You keep bringing it back to the syllables of the mantra, the sound that's being vibrated from the lips. And before one knows it, one is enraptured in a type of trance. But this isn't just an ordinary trance. This is a type of divine trance where they start to notice this material conditioning shedding off like the layers of an onion, in which case one starts to actually perceive the true self, the jiva or atma in Sanskrit means the self, the soul, and the real nature of the soul with clarity in such a way that one can reawaken this divine consciousness from within. And so for those of you not familiar, you can even just Google Maha, M-A-H-A, mantra. Mantra is a Sanskrit word, manasa trayate, means to free the mind. Man in Sanskrit means mind, and trayate means to free or to deliver. So this Maha mantra, and one can sit and just chant a few mantras, start with 10, then go up to 50, and then to 108, and then do various rounds of 108 like that. And before one knows it, not only will they have control of the mind and the senses, but they will too also feel a great connection, unlike anything they've ever experienced.
And with what you said about the ancient divine sounds, some people use mantra in English, but I mean, I find personally that you go to Sanskrit, Tibetan Sanskrit, Chinese, Japanese, when you chant in those ancient languages, there's Native American chants as well, African chants, Egyptian chants. Those ancient languages have something more potent than English. English is kind of Hawaiian. I don't know how I forgot Hawaiian. Hawaiian chants completely changed my life, but you have that opportunity to create a sound that helps you to get into a deeper state of loving service. And I love that my mind was kind of thinking that you were going to talk about more physical ways of devotional service, but I love how you brought up mantra, because that's part of that emotional regulation and getting yourself into a state of spiritual service. Because by chanting mantra and putting your vibration, putting a higher vibration, putting a divine vibration into the world, you're causing a ripple effect in the spirit realm. For example, like if you or I kill a demon in the spirit realm, that is a greater service than if I help some kid tie their shoes, right? Like that spiritual solution is a deeper service than physical, because if I build a house, it's going to break down. If I build a temple, eventually it's going to break down. If I cook some food for somebody, that's a beautiful service, but they're going to digest it. It's going to turn to shit. So we have that opportunity to create spiritual service. And with that, I think we'll close it up on the note of spiritual service. And thank you, Madhu, for joining. If you have any finishing touches for this really excellent wisdom talk, just go ahead and share that with the audience.
Sure. Well, I'm grateful to do some tea and chi. Got my little tea here. I brought some CCCFT, cumin, coriander, fennel. And what I will say is that for anyone who's listening, just know that there's always an option. Helplessness often creeps into the mind. And once we let that creep too deep, it contaminates the mind. And so not only is hope always available, but it's always an option that is going to provide a sense of relief in our lives. And so if anyone listening just ever feels like hopeless, like pointless, etc., never hesitate to reach out. I know Owen will also offer the same, but offer myself to reach out to me. Is we have groups, free groups that we have online, one including the Monk Mindset Mastery. If anyone could search on the Monk Mindset Mastery, or otherwise you could just send me an email at info@madhu.life, madhu.life, or find me on any social platform, madhu.life. And I'm happy to send you resources to this free group where you can participate and come. And just the idea is to have tools and options, because as soon as we feel optionless, that's when life gets really bleak. But as soon as you know, okay, I got lots of options, there's unlimited ways that my life can just improve, my quality of my life can improve. That's primarily what we're looking for here. And if I can offer any service in that way, it'd be my absolute pleasure. So feel free to send me a message at madhu.life and any platform, and I'm happy to get you connected with some free resources so that you too can think like a monk without having to move into the monastery. And thank you again, Owen, for creating a safe space for us to get to explore these topics. And I hope that I'll be able to, I hope I said something that was helpful, and we'll be able to serve you all in some form or another.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Madhu. Thank you for everyone for joining, and wishing you all the absolute best in your life. That tea and chi vibration.
Thank you.